Okay, it's on.
Good morning, Ms. Molina. Thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Yes, of
We're
course.
gonna, as part of my assignment, we're gonna conduct an interview today. So I'll just ask you a few questions. First and foremost, how many years have you been an educator?
So this will be my 17th year of education. So I first started when I was 23, and then I'm now going to be 40. So
Wow,
I've been
long
with
time.
Vanguard, yes, these 17 years, and I've loved it.
What grade level do you teach currently?
So currently I teach kinder. When I first got hired, I taught pre-K. I taught pre-K 4, and then after the first year, my principal said, we have some good news and some bad news. And I was like, okay. And then from there, she's like, which one do you want first? And I said, obviously, the bad news. And she's like, well, the bad news is you're going to be switching grade level. She goes, but the good news is you still have a job. So at that point, she moved me with kinder. So my first year again, I did pre-K 4 for 1 year, and then I've been 16 years with kinder.
That sounds like quite a journey.
It was.
So let me ask you this: how important do you think the role of a teacher is for the community? Not just in your grade level, but just in general, the role of a teacher.
Well, I always say, when it comes to so much emphasis, like on the upper grades, just to give you an example, I always say I think kinder is important because we set the foundation, right? As a teacher, we set the foundation for future doctors, for future surgeons, right? Future lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that there's so much emphasis on all these other jobs, right? But as a teacher, I've seen how some of these kids, they've never been in school before. They've never experienced what it is to be in the school system, right? And so they come in scared, they come in nervous, and just a lot of them also needing a lot of love. So as a teacher, I think it's just so important for us to frame these kids and be there and be their support system, and also, providing the education that obviously that they need in order for them to be successful. But it's so meaningful, and I think a lot of people don't understand that at first, because they're just like, oh, they're just teachers. They just go in and do the job, and then they go home and they have summers off and they have it paid and so forth. And it's just so much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more than just thinking they got it made, because we go home and we don't rest.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing activities, we're planning, we're doing all of these things, and I take our jobs very important, and it's very meaningful, at least to me, right? But again, this is a profession that you have to love.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't love it, you're going to be completely miserable.
So, what other grade levels have you taught, or have you always just taught kindergarten, or is there any upper grade levels or anything like that, or have you always just stayed where you're at right now?
So the only other grade I taught was pre-K 4 and kinder, unfortunately. So I know that my principal at one point has told me, go to the upper grades, and you need this if you ever want to be a principal, because I do have my master's degree. But I guess I've always just thought I need to set their foundation. And even though they put so much emphasis on the upper grades, I was like, my mind thought, how can you have a third grader perform if they don't even know like their letters and sounds from the very beginning?
Mm-hmm.
So I know so many principals and admin put so much emphasis kind of like on the upper grades and third grade and so forth. I've always put the importance on the foundation, and I'm their foundation.
Mm-hmm.
I teach them social skills. I teach them how to pretty much not only survive in education and continue with their education like in a meaningful way, but I also teach them important values. I teach them social skills and just a lot of things that they need also in their day-to-day lives. And I make sure not only to just teach what it is that we're supposed to teach, but I also put emphasis on learning moments, right? I take that if something occurs or something happens in our classroom, we completely stop everything and we try to make everything like a learning moment. And I not only just say, okay, you shouldn't have done this. I explain, you shouldn't have done this and why you shouldn't have done it, because you know, this was not a good choice, or this was not a good example that we set, and why is it. And I also give them real life examples, not just only, you know, the situation that would have occurred. I use the example of like, look, this is why, because of this and this, or this and that. And a lot of them, you know, they really grasp the concept, and sometimes it might take a little bit longer than others. But I mean, I've always loved kinder, and I've always had the opportunity to kind of grow in this grade level, being grade level chair for many years, and just other opportunities that kinder has provided for me. So I love it. But you have to love what you do and love this age group, because if you don't, it'll be really
It'll be
hard.
more challenging.
It will.
So we talked a little bit about the grade levels that you have taught, but how do you manage all of these behaviors that you've kind of mentioned, or how do you manage to get yourself organized for your instruction, for your lessons? How do you manage all of that? Because aside from teaching, you have other roles that you have mentioned. So how do you manage that?
Time. You have to be really good in time management. That's like the main one. And just kind of planning ahead. You know, you can't think to yourself as a first year teacher and think, oh my God, this is going to come easy to me. It doesn't. I remember my first year that I got here, it was myself at the time, and it was 3 aides. There was 2 classrooms, there was 3 aides. And I remember them looking at me and they said, you're the teacher for both classes, right? And I was like, oh my God, it was my first year teaching. I was like, no, I'm the teacher for my class. And it took a lot of preparation. And back in the day, you know, you didn't have like a mentor teacher, like helping you or anything like that. It was like you were on your own. And so it was a lot of preparing, a lot of research, a lot of looking into the TEKS, looking into what you were supposed to teach, because we didn't have like curriculums and things like this, at least back in the day, you know. And we sooner or later, we built on it, but it was a lot of us preparing and a lot of us going home and buying things. That was a big one. You know, when I started, they gave me, I want to say, I don't know, let's just throw out a number, like $250. And I mean, how do you fill a classroom with when you have nothing with $250? It was an investment. And not only was it an investment, it was just preparing for everything that you needed, like printing stuff and doing activities, and just kind of being open-minded to, oh my God, not thinking, man, I'm wasting my money on this, but how is it going to be beneficial for your students? So that's also another mindset. And another thing I would say is organization is key. You know, always having like everything documented, having like checklists and stuff like that, and keeping yourself like on a well-paced management system, to where it's like you don't take things for granted. I've always been really big on organization, because like my OCD kind of kicks in. And just, you know, following deadlines, whether that means to get a calendar or whether a planner. I see a lot of teachers with planners. I don't have a planner, but I'm big on computers, so everything I have is like on computer and stuff like that. All of our files, keeping everything on a drive. But I do think that if you don't prepare your lessons and stuff, you'll be lost. I'm one of those, like, I am really good because of curriculum writing. I kind of am familiar with what I'm going to teach, but for somebody that's new and is completely brand new to the profession, you need to study what your material. You can't expect to just get in there in the next day and be like, oh, I'm going to do great in my activity. Especially when we have like different moments of like people coming in or people observing, or we have admin coming into the classroom. It's always necessary for you to know your material, know it right, and do a good job, but also be able to manage the children very well, because that's another one. If you don't manage your classroom very well, you don't manage your children very well, it's going to be an issue, right? I've always been the type of teacher, you know, teachers leave impacts on kids' lives, right? Absolutely. I remember, and it came out this last time on one of my feeds, that one of our moments that we remember the most as a kid was reading the paragraph before the teacher was going to call on you. I don't know if you remember that the teacher would call you, at least when I was in school, the teacher would call you in order. Yes. So you anticipated the paragraph that you were going to read because you were so fearful of that, right? And so my thing is just, instilling with these kids that we gotta love the classroom environment, right? We gotta love our teachers, not be fearful of what it is that I'm going to teach, right? Or how we're gonna come into the day, because I mean, obviously with kinder, we do have a lot of kids that come in and wanna cry, right? And so I have to be, and Miss S has to be their comfort in saying this is a safe space, right? And this is going to be a place where we're going to build respect, we're going to build a lot of love, and I don't have to yell at you. I don't have to yell at you. I don't have to get mad at you in a way that's going to be ugly or anything like that. Like, I'm going to count from 1 to 3 or 1 to 5, and the way I'm talking to you now is how I'm going to talk. By the time I get to 5, by the time I get to 3, we're gonna stop it, because you know what, it's not fair for everybody else, and it's not conducive to my classroom either.
And other students are distracted as well, or it takes time away from their learning.
And I tell them, like, we'll stop the class and we'll be like, guys, like, we can't do this, and I'll explain. I won't just be like, well, you know what, we're too loud or anything like that. And we try to explain to them also, like, we're very nice teachers, right? We're very nice, very understanding. I'm not one that if you misbehave and you do something bad, I'm gonna go call mom, or I'm gonna call dad. That's not me, because at the same time, I want them to understand they can come to me when they need to, right? We can build that bond, but in a nice and respectful way. So I try to teach that respect with the kids, like, really early on.
And some behaviors are natural and are expected to happen, and so this is where you as a teacher just kind of guide the children into managing their behaviors and things of that sort.
Yeah, because a lot of these kids also, we have to understand, well, for one, they're 5 and 6 year olds, right? Sometimes, oh, he did it on purpose, or it doesn't really have to go to that extreme. A lot of this stuff is very accidental, right? And a lot of this stuff is developmental, to where the kid doesn't really understand what they're doing, right? And that's where myself as a teacher, we need to kind of show them and guide them, or Miss S, and showing them, hey guys, this is the proper way we would do this. And because some of these kids have never been in school, like, and they behave a certain way at home, they think it's acceptable, and it's not, but it's okay, right? These are learning moments, and these are moments that we talk to them, we teach them, and we guide